Welcome. My name is Robert Hawk, and I welcome you to Cooking the Hawk's Way. I'm going to be sharing with you my love of cooking, my love of food, and the recipes that I'm going to be making will be mostly healthy. I'm trying to do a modified version of the ketogenic diet. I've got some complications that does not allow me to do a full-on keto diet. I'm somewhat lactose intolerant, and I've also got a pretty serious nut allergy, so most of your almond flours and things of that nature just scare me, and I stay as far away from them as I can. Please be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're notified of all our future videos. Alright, we're going to jump into tonight's recipe, which is going to be I'm using a dry rub, and we're going to oven bake these pork chops. I'm making some loaded cauliflower, basically faux mashed potatoes. And for dessert, we're going to do a homemade applesauce with limited ingredients. We're going to have some carbs just from the apples, but it's limited because we're not actually using refined sugar. And I'm going to use a little bit of maple syrup and just some cinnamon to taste. So let's jump into the dry rub. I have always kind of had a love of spice anyways, so I don't generally measure most of my spice. I mix it together and then give it a taste, and if I need to add more ingredients of one or the other, I adjust it then. I keep a container. I actually have this shaker container that I keep some in there all the time, and I just add to it when I use it. It's a dry rub. It's spicy. It is flavorful. Really brings out the ingredients that I use, and I'll go through a whole list of them here in a second. The ingredients that I use basically enhance pork or chicken. They work really well with either. I have about probably, I didn't count today, looks like we're at about 11 ingredients. And I like to make sure that it really has a good flavor. Okay, so far we've put in some Cavender's Greek seasoning, some smoky mesquite. I put in onion powder, paprika, garlic powder. I don't think I put very much in, so we're going to add a little more. I've got smokehouse maple that I'm going to put what's left in the container in. Seasoned salt. And I do all this to taste. Your taste may be different than mine, so for me to give you an actual measurement may work for me, and you may think it's too much. So season to your liking. I've got this one here is sweet and hickory. And I've got some pork rub. And last, a little bit of salt. And actually one more. I usually put in 2 tablespoons full of brown sugar, and this last time we actually got dark brown sugar. Then I whisk it all to get it mixed real well. You don't want any clumps, or as very few clumps as possible. Looks pretty good. Take the top off with my shaker bottle. Dump it all in there and mix it in together with the rest. And this will be more than enough. Tonight we've got 4 medium pork chops. It'll be more than enough to coat both of them. On both sides, I mean. Okay, so we've got our pork chops here. These are boneless. They're probably a half-inch, a little bit thicker. Each one of them are about 4 ounces. And I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of olive oil over each one of them. And I'll use my brush to brush it in, so that when I put the seasoning on it, you're going to want that seasoning to sit. It'll soak into the meat and be real nice. So we've got this little brush I try to take, and I'll do both sides that way. And then I literally just use the my shaker container here, and I just let it drizzle over the top. It's okay to have a little extra. It's going to run off. We did a carb count on this. There's only going to be about 2 tablespoons total, because it's going to soak into the meat. That's what's going to give you your flavor. And we let this sit generally for about an hour. I'll put this on an hour before I'm going to cook it. I want that to really permeate the meat. The brown sugar will get in there, and it'll literally flavor the meat really nicely. Then I flip them over, and I do the exact same thing on the other side. And then I generally, like I said, set them aside and let that soak into the meat. I have the oven preheating at 350 degrees, and to go along with tonight's meal is our cauliflower. Now, we've seen recipes where you take a head of cauliflower and you actually blanch it, you cook it somewhat, and finish it in the oven. We're not going to do that. We actually used the steam bags, went ahead and cooked it already, and then we've got it setting, draining any moisture out through our strainer. So I'm going to open this one as well. We just followed the directions on the cauliflower to go ahead and steam it in the microwave. And as I've got this set here, I'll let that drain for a moment. We're going to follow the recipe somewhat. I've got it modified so that I'm not taking in as much cheese. I can handle a little, but not a terrible amount. So we're going to use, of an 8-ounce block of cream cheese, we're going to do about 2 ounces. And we had that 2-room temperature, so it was a little bit soft. You don't want to try to work with it straight out of the refrigerator. It's 2 tablespoons of butter with that. And then my cauliflower has very little moisture that has come out, but you don't, even that little bit, you don't want that mixed in with your meal, because it's going to make it too wet. And then we use our masher, and we just mash through it so that the cream cheese and the butter all get incorporated together. And then to that, we're going to add our other ingredients. I prefer using the Pampered Chef Mix and Mash. I try to break up the clumps and incorporate the cheese and the butter. I'm actually going to switch to a hand mixer here in a moment, because I've got to incorporate the cream cheese, or not the cream cheese, the sour cream and the garlic and bacon bits, and I've actually cut up some green onion, and I want to mix all that through. I think I might use the green onion at the very end so that there's just a little pop of green without busting it all up through there. I think that is what we're looking for. It's got a nice creamy consistency. We'll go ahead and throw our bacon in. And that was, I had pre-done probably 3 slices of thick cut bacon. And you cook it to your liking. If you like it super crispy, then cook it super crispy. I don't prefer it quite that way, but I did make it where it's a compromise for between myself and my wife, that we like bacon a little bit different way, but nevertheless it's something that we found a mutual ground. And then on cheese, once again, with me being lactose intolerant, I can tolerate a little. A lot is a whole different story. So I'm just gonna put enough cheese in for color. I've already got the cream cheese in there, and that's gonna be enough that I try not to go overboard. So what I use there, obviously for you, if you're going to recreate this recipe, then you use the amount of cheese that you're happy and comfortable with. Doesn't that look good? And then we are going to pop this into the oven, 350 degrees, for probably 35 minutes. Alright, so now we're going to put together our applesauce, our homemade applesauce. And yes, granted, anybody that's watching this are like, applesauce on keto? Well, once again, it's something, it's my little treat. I'm trying to make it to where I've got something that I can enjoy that is not entirely keto friendly. We've done the breakdown for the entire meal, and for the entire meal you're looking per plate about 24 grams of carbs. That clearly the apples are the most at nearly 14 between the apple, the tablespoon of maple syrup that I'm going to use, and the little bit of brown sugar. The cauliflower is somewhere about 7 grams and 4 grams of carbs for the pork chops, the seasoning on the pork chop. But we're going to go ahead and get the butter mostly melted. Then I'm going to go ahead and put my apples, my cinnamon, and my brown sugar in there and let them start to cook off. And I will add in the maple syrup just for a little bit of sweetener. I'd rather do maple syrup than some of the sugar substitutes. We actually take sugar in the raw is what I use mostly, and I put it in the magic bullet and pulverize it to where it's just almost powdered sugar. That anything that I do use sweetener in, that's what I've been using. I'd rather use actually unrefined sugar than I would any kind of substitute. Okay. Never heard of such thing, but okay.
It's the way my mom cooks it.
Smells really, really good. It's going to take a little bit to cook these down. That it'll get some juice out of the actual apple itself, as well as the maple syrup, the brown sugar, and the cinnamon. I just let them cook on medium-high heat. Let them cook down. As they reduce, they'll get softer and softer. In this, I've not done it before, but my wife said her mom has always added just a little bit of onion to the apples for sweetness. So we went ahead and did that. I'm just going to let that sit for a moment. So I'm going ahead and using my mix and mash. I've obviously cleaned it since I used it on the cauliflower. Just trying to make sure the apples are broke up into nice small pieces. They're cooking up nicely because they're nice and soft. I'm not having to push very hard at all, and it goes right through them. And they smell wonderful. The cinnamon, the actual sweetness of the apple itself, and then the maple syrup. Won't be very long. We'll have a nice homemade applesauce. They smell so good. As you can see, the brown sugar caramelizes on top of in that rub. It caramelizes on top of the pork chops. It's gonna go off regardless. Can't do nothing about it. Plate up some of our apples. Mashed potatoes, cauliflower mashed potatoes, and one of our chops. Okay, now to go over this again, the cooking time and temperature. Was a 350 oven for 35 minutes, and about 15 to 16 minutes in, I actually flipped them because you want a little bit of caramelization on each side. We checked the temperature. We were right at 145. Oh my gosh. That rub, the brown sugar on there, caramelized on the meat. It's so good. What a meal. We will have the entire recipe, all our measurements, everything, all the ingredient list in the comments section below. Thank you for watching.